What strikes me, Alanah, is this area was huge. I mean, the Great Basin is a huge geographical area. How can we get a handle on where the people were and where they were making rock art?
Well, it is kind of a big area. Most people are familiar with states and state sizes, and some of the eastern states are this big and the ones out here are this big. But when we were putting Under One Sky together, we had a team of co-curators made up of Native American representatives from all the major tribes, and we came up with a map, and we have a map of the Great Basin here, and this is actually the hydrographic Great Basin. That's the part of the basin where all the water drains internally, and it goes all the way over to central Utah. The Wasatch Mountain Range is kind of the eastern boundary. All the way, you cut out this area around here where the Colorado River drains, because it does drain out to the ocean, so it's not really technically inside. This is to be the southern Paiute territory in this area. Las Vegas down around here. We have the Western Shoshone people coming up through the central part of Nevada and all the way up into Utah, and the northern Paiute coming all the way north into northern Oregon, and the Washoe people here on the western part of the state of Nevada. And they did put rock art on most of the areas where they traveled. Throughout their seasonal round, they traveled widely. The people down the south, there was some farming. Farmers don't travel as much. So there's a lot of rock art down here. People are very sedentary, concentrated there for a long period of time. Lots and lots of rock art. The people up around the major environmental boundaries, like the mountain ranges. And over here in the eastern part of the state, you find big concentrations of rock art in those areas as well.
Well, terrific. Well, let's go see some rock art.
Let's go see some.
We tag along on a work session conducted by the Nevada Rock Art Foundation, which Dr. Woody now directs. Volunteers will be documenting a rock site that is particularly threatened by a nearby urban area.
The reason that we're all out here today is because this rock art is here. The site itself is fabulous, this whole area is wonderful, and we're out here to help provide a thorough documentation, a complete record of the rock art as it exists today, so that later on we can watch for any changes, vandalism, or natural degradation and deterioration through time. All of this stuff will become a part of the official site record. So the contribution made by the volunteers is more important than I can say. If we had to pay professional archaeologists to come out and do the level of recording that we do, there isn't enough money in the world to do it. So the contributions that you guys make by providing your effort and labor to come out and do this is it's immeasurable. Museums are a great place for you to learn about the history and the culture of native peoples of Nevada, but whenever you come out into the landscape and you see the real stuff in the real place, that really makes it come home to you, the significance and the importance of these places. They're petroglyphs, that means they're engraved. They're made right here in a large site, a large complex of archaeological materials and other features that are a part of where the people who made these petroglyphs lived. They lived right here among the petroglyphs, and they made their dinner here. The site's well known for having groundstone and all those kinds of things associated with it. Not too many representational images, people and animals so much, as things that are more abstract like these or this larger image over here. It's really anybody's guess what that might mean. It looks sort of like a plant of some kind or something, and it's interesting that this particular shape or design is repeated several times throughout this site particularly. That might even be something like a clan marker or something that identifies this place, some specific thing, because you do see it repeated here at this site several times. And we have things that are very common that you find throughout the world. We might call that a sunburst or something like that. And you do see those everywhere. One of the things that you do when you try to understand a lot of these things is that you look at the patterns and distributions and the context that you find them in. Archaeology in general is all about pattern recognition. You look at where you find things in the landscape and what other things do you find them with. And so we have a sunburst pattern here, and we have it sitting in this particular site. We have lots of sites in the hills surrounding us here. We may or may not have any more sunburst. So then we would start to look at where else do you see a sunburst? Does it have some kind of connection to the site that it's in, and what other characteristics are there? So you really can't look for meanings just by looking at one image, one site. You need to compare them with other ones, and you compare the context over broader regions. And so when we take this one, say we've taken these boulders out of this place, we can't see any of the rest of the stuff that it's with. And then we lose all of its meaning because the context is lost, and we'll never really hope to be able to understand what they mean, because all of these are symbolic. The big question on everyone's mind is, what do these mean? And if you have a sunburst symbol here, it may mean something to the people who made it here, but if you have a sunburst in China or in Japan or in India or Africa, it might mean something completely different. The image looks the same, but the meaning is cultural. The meaning is derived by the people who created it.
You have different views of what the images are telling. They could be a practical message or teaching. It could deal with hunting again, conditions in the weather.
Ben Aleck serves as collection manager at the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribal Museum. He's studied rock art in different parts of the American West.
We found out, especially talking with people in the Dry Lake area, that the tribal people had a connection with the universe, with the sun, the moon, with the summer solstice, the fall solstice, winter solstice. I think they're doing a good job to do the documentation and recording, because if we don't protect them, time's going to take them from us, and then we'll lose those lessons that are being told in the rock art. And I think that it needs to be looked at in a wider view than some people tend to do. So my feeling with the work that the volunteers are doing with the Great Basin Rock Art Association with Alanah Woody, I think they're doing a good job to do the documentation and recording, because if we don't protect them, time's going to take them from us, and then we'll lose those lessons that are being told in the rock art.
This is an impacted area. Many people are going to be coming here in the future, and we want to have a baseline. So it's twofold. For posterity, it's very important an impacted area be recorded. If you feel it's pecked, then you can go ahead and label it pecked, and what part you think is scraped. You can put the word scrapes down.
You ever use a magnifying glass to see?
Oh yes. If you're in question, magnifying glass is not a bad idea.
You probably noticed as we were walking around the site, we have blue tape scattered here and there, and those are the things that we use to mark the panels that we're going to be recording. At this site, we think there's somewhere in the area of 100 to 125 panels. Panels are defined pretty much as just a single rock face, and it can have lots of petroglyphs on them, or it could just have one or two, or it might just have, like this one in front of you now, it just has a little bit of rock art on it, but it's a kind of a big face. So there's probably over 100. As an overview of the kind of work that you do on a documentation project, we have groups of people scattered throughout the site here, and at the far end of the site we have people who are doing scaled drawings. It means they're very accurate to scale and size, the drawings of all the petroglyphs. Those are the best management tool for keeping track of changes in the panels themselves. And right next to them you have people who are filling out a form that's part of the archaeological record called IMAX, and they do measurements and orientations and the size of the panels and those kinds of things. You have another group right down here is doing photography, and for the photography we do black and white negatives, color slides, digital images of every panel. Then we do some close-ups and some sort of detail shots of the ones that are particularly interesting. And then next to them here we have a group of people who are learning to do color readings on the rocks themselves. And through time the color of the rock changes, and you can tell a little bit about differences in ages and maybe when people were doing things out here based on the color differences between the petroglyphs themselves on the panels. So he's teaching them how to do those very precise color readings off of a particular kind of chart that geologists use.